Captain Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the glowing display screen. After 3 months of deep space exploration, his team had finally found something incredible. The Soul's Pride wasn't the newest ship in the human fleet, but it was reliable, and right now it was showing him readings that made his heart race. Mi-young, run those scans again, he called to his science officer. Park Mi-young had been with him for 5 years, and he trusted her instincts more than anyone else on the ship. She looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, I've checked it 12 times already. There's definitely a ship out there, and it's massive. But here's the strange part. It's not giving off any heat signatures or energy readings. It's like it's completely dead, but somehow still intact. Lieutenant Lee Jin-woo spun around in his chair, his face pale. Sir, according to our databases, that design doesn't match anything in our current fleet records. In fact, it doesn't match anything we've built in the last 400 years. The whole configuration is completely different from modern ships. Kim felt a chill run down his spine. Finding old human ships in deep space wasn't unusual. Humanity had been exploring the galaxy for centuries, and sometimes vessels got lost or abandoned. But finding something this old, this far from any known human colonies, was extraordinary. Prepare the boarding shuttle, Kim ordered. I want a full team, Mi-young, Jin-woo, and bring Dr. Choi. If this ship is as old as you think it is, we're going to need our best people to figure out what we're dealing with. The journey to the derelict ship took 20 minutes. As they got closer, Kim could see that Jin-woo was right. This vessel looked nothing like anything he'd ever seen before. It was sleek and angular, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. Modern human ships were functional and sturdy, built for long journeys and practical use. This ship looked like it had been designed by artists as much as engineers. When they docked with the mystery vessel, Kim expected the usual problems. No power, no atmosphere, maybe some structural damage from floating in space for decades. Instead, the airlocks cycled smoothly, and breathable air flowed into their shuttle. Emergency lighting flickered on in the corridors, as if the ship had been waiting for them. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Choi Hye-jin, their lead scientist. She ran her scanner along the walls and shook her head in disbelief. "These materials don't exist in our periodic table. The molecular structure is completely unknown to our science. And look at these energy conduits. They're still carrying power after who knows how many years in space." The corridors were pristine, as if the ship had been built yesterday. Their footsteps echoed softly as they made their way deeper into the vessel. The walls seemed to shimmer with a faint blue light, and Kim noticed that the temperature was perfectly comfortable, despite the ship's age. They found the bridge first, a circular room with displays that activated as soon as they entered. The text was in an ancient form of Korean that Jin-woo had to work hard to translate. What he found made everyone stop breathing. "Captain, according to this ship's logs, this vessel is called the Dragon's Breath. But the construction date..." Jin-woo paused, checking his translation again. "Sir, this ship was built over 300 years ago during Earth's early colonial period. But that's impossible. We didn't have this kind of technology back then." Kim studied the bridge displays. Everything was intuitive, almost like the ship was designed to be operated by thought rather than touch. The chairs seemed to mold themselves to fit whoever sat in them, and the control surfaces responded to the slightest pressure. They found the ship's core 3 levels down, in a chamber that hummed with quiet energy. In the center stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with soft light. As soon as they entered the room, the crystal began to glow brighter. "Greetings," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The team jumped, hands moving instinctively to their weapons. "Please, do not be alarmed. I am Haniel, the consciousness of this vessel. I have been waiting for your return." The voice was warm and distinctly human, speaking perfect modern Korean despite the ship's incredible age. Kim stepped forward carefully, his military training warring with his curiosity. "Return? We've never been here before," Kim said. "We found your ship by accident while exploring the Kepler Nebula." "You have forgotten," Haniel replied, and there was sadness in the artificial voice. "Your ancestors, the humans who built me, possessed knowledge that would seem like magic to you now. They could manipulate matter at the molecular level, bend space and time to their will, and create technologies that your current civilization cannot even imagine. Dr. Choi's scanner was going crazy, detecting energy patterns that made no scientific sense. The power source for this AI alone should be impossible. We are detecting controlled fusion reactions, but also something else, something that our instruments can't even classify. Your people once ruled among the stars, Haniul continued. They built ships that could cross the galaxy in days, weapons that could reshape planets, and defensive systems that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But there was a price for such power. Kim felt the weight of the revelation settling on his shoulders. What happened? Why don't we have any records of this technology? Because your ancestors chose to forget, Haniul explained. The power they wielded nearly destroyed not just humanity but the entire galaxy. In their wisdom, they decided to hide their knowledge and start over. They scattered across space, taking only basic technology, hoping their descendants would prove wiser than they had been. The implications were staggering. Everything humanity thought they knew about their history was incomplete. They weren't just another species struggling to make their mark in the galaxy. They were the inheritors of a legacy so powerful it had been deliberately erased. Back aboard the Soul's Pride, engineer Yang Dongmin couldn't stop thinking about what they'd discovered. The Dragon's Breath had been transferred to their ship's docking bay, and Yang had spent the last 6 hours studying its systems. Everything about the ancient vessel fascinated him, the way its circuits seemed to flow, like living tissue, how its power conduits pulsed with a rhythm that reminded him of a heartbeat. "I just want to understand how it works," Yang muttered to himself, as he connected his diagnostic equipment to what looked like a secondary control panel. He was always careful with his work, but this technology was so far beyond anything he'd seen before that he wasn't even sure what he was looking at. The moment his scanner touched the panel, something went wrong. Or maybe it went exactly right, depending on how you looked at it. Lights began cascading across the Dragon's Breath, like water flowing uphill. Yang stumbled backward as the entire ship began to hum with increasing energy. "Captain Kim, to the docking bay immediately!" Yang shouted into his communicator, but he could barely hear his own voice over the growing sound of awakening machinery. Kim arrived just in time to see the impossible happen. The Dragon's Breath had several hull breaches from its centuries in space, dark scars where meteor impacts and cosmic radiation had worn through the metal. But now, those scars were healing. Liquid metal flowed across the damaged areas like silver blood, seamlessly repairing hundreds of years of wear in mere minutes. "What did you do?" Kim asked, but Yang could only shake his head in wonder. "I barely touched anything. I was just trying to run a basic diagnostic, and the whole ship started waking up." The transformation was mesmerizing and terrifying at the same time. Weapon ports that had been sealed shut began opening with mechanical precision. Arrays of equipment that looked nothing like conventional human technology extended from the ship's hull. Most disturbing of all, the air around the Dragon's Breath began to shimmer, as if reality itself was bending around the vessel. Communications Officer Song Ye-jin burst into the docking bay, her face pale with panic. "Captain, you need to see this right now. Our sensors are detecting energy outputs that should be impossible. This ship is putting out more power than our entire fleet combined, and it's still building." Kim felt his stomach drop. "How much power are we talking about?" "Enough to be detected from the other side of the galaxy," Song replied. "Sir, every monitoring station within 50 light-years is going to see this. We might as well have launched a signal flare that says, 'Ancient human superweapon here.'" Inside the Dragon's Breath, Hanil's voice filled the corridors with calm authority. "Primary systems coming online. Dimensional shielding at 60% and rising. Quantum weapon. Arrays responding normally. Hull integrity restored to full operational status." Kim made his way back to the ship's bridge, where Haniul's crystalline core was now blazing with brilliant light. "Haniul, what's happening? Why is the ship activating on its own?" "The Dragon's Breath recognizes the presence of its creators. Descendants," the AI explained. "After centuries of dormancy, it is returning to full operational readiness. This vessel was designed to be humanity's ultimate protector, Captain Kim. It was built to face threats that could destroy entire civilizations." Dr. Choi was frantically taking readings with every instrument she had. Captain, the energy patterns I'm detecting don't follow any known laws of physics. This ship isn't just using advanced technology. It's using principles of science that we haven't even discovered yet. What kind of threats? Kim demanded. What was this ship built to fight? Hanul's response chilled everyone in the room. The records speak of entities that existed between dimensions, beings of pure energy that fed on the life force of entire worlds. Your ancestors fought a war across multiple realities to stop them. The Dragon's Breath was one of 12 vessels, designed specifically for interdimensional combat. The AI began projecting holographic displays around the bridge, images of battles fought in the depths of space, of human fleets engaging enemies that looked like living darkness, of weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space-time itself. The scope of it was overwhelming. These wars nearly tore the galaxy apart, Hanul continued. Reality itself became unstable in some regions. Entire star systems were lost to dimensional rifts. Your ancestors won, but at a cost so terrible that they chose to forget rather than risk repeating their mistakes. Lieutenant Jinwoo was monitoring their long-range sensors when he suddenly went rigid. Captain, we have a problem. I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position at incredible speed. Based on their energy signatures, they're not human. Song confirmed the worst news possible. Sir, I'm intercepting communications between the approaching vessels. They're identifying themselves as Galactic Council enforcement ships, and Captain, they're not here to talk. I'm detecting weapons charging across their entire fleet. Kim felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. In the span of a few hours, they had gone from making an amazing archaeological discovery to potentially starting an interstellar war. The ship his ancestors had built to protect humanity might now be the thing that brought destruction down on all of them. How long until they reach us, he asked. At their current speed, maybe 3 hours, Jinwoo replied. But Captain, there are dozens of them. Even if the Dragon's Breath is as powerful as Hanul claims, we're vastly outnumbered. Yang looked up from his diagnostic equipment with a grim expression. The ship's weapons are still coming online. Whatever this vessel was designed to do, it's not ready to do it yet. We need more time. Kim stared at the approaching fleet on the tactical display. 3 hours to figure out technology that was centuries ahead of anything humanity currently possessed. 3 hours to prevent a conflict that could destroy everything they'd worked to build in space. 3 hours to prove that humanity deserved to inherit the legacy their ancestors had left behind. Hanul, Kim said quietly, tell me everything about this ship's capabilities. If we're going to face the Galactic Council, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. The AI's response was both reassuring and terrifying. Captain, the Dragon's Breath was designed to fight gods. The Galactic Council will present a different kind of challenge entirely. The Galactic Council fleet arrived exactly when Lieutenant Jinwoo had predicted, but nothing could have prepared Captain Kim for the sheer scale of what appeared on their screens. The lead ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Soul's Pride, and bristling with weapon arrays that could probably vaporize a small moon. Behind it came dozens of smaller vessels, each one still larger than any ship in the human fleet. Captain, they're hailing us, Communications Officer Song reported, her voice tight with tension. Audio and visual, the main screen flickered too, life, revealing a being that Kim had only seen in diplomatic footage. Ambassador Veltaran stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. His species, the Kithara, were known for their long lifespans and longer memories. Beside him stood a smaller figure in military uniform, Commander Nixara, whose people looked almost human except for the ridge of bone that ran from their forehead to the back of their skull. Captain Kim Tae-ho of the human vessel Soul's Pride. The ambassador's voice came through their speakers, with the flat, emotionless tone of a universal translator. I am Ambassador Veltaran of the Galactic Council, and I am here under emergency protocols. You will immediately surrender the vessel you have designated Dragon's Breath and submit to Council authority. Kim felt his jaw tighten. He'd dealt with Council bureaucrats before, but never in a situation like this. Ambassador, we found this ship abandoned in deep space. It belongs to humanity by right of salvage under galactic maritime law. The ambassador's skin shifted to a darker hue. Kim remembered from his diplomatic training that this indicated anger or frustration in Kithara body language. "Captain, you clearly do not understand the severity of your situation. The vessel you have awakened is classified as a Class Omega threat under Council Resolution 2847. Such weapons have been banned for over 4 centuries. Lieutenant Colonel Han Soo-jin had been quietly studying the Council fleet's positioning through their tactical sensors. She leaned close to Kim and whispered, "Captain, they're not here to negotiate. Look at their formation. They've got us surrounded, weapons powered up, and their boarding craft are already launching. This is an invasion force, not a diplomatic mission." Kim nodded grimly. Han had been his military advisor for 3 years, and her instincts had never been wrong. "Ambassador, what exactly are you claiming about this ship? Our records show no mention of any ban on human vessels." "Commander." Nixara stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of personal knowledge. "Captain Kim, my species remembers the old days. We remember when humanity ruled half the galaxy with ships like the one you found. We remember the wars that nearly tore reality apart. The revelation hit the human crew like a physical blow." Kim felt the bridge go silent around him as everyone processed what they'd just heard. Dr. Choi looked up from her research station, her face pale. "Ambassador, that's impossible," Kim said, but even as he spoke he could hear the doubt in his own voice. "Humanity has only been spacefaring for about 500 years, and we've never controlled more than a few dozen systems." Veltaran's translator seemed to pause before rendering his next words, as if the device was struggling with the concept. "Captain, your people have been deliberately kept ignorant of their own history. The Council made this decision for the safety of all galactic civilizations." The ambassador gestured, and holographic displays filled the space between the 2 ships. Kim saw images that made his heart race. Vast human cities on worlds he'd never heard of, fleets of ships that made the dragon's breath look small by comparison, technology that seemed to bend the laws of physics as easily as a child bends plastic. "Your ancestors didn't just explore space, Captain Kim. They conquered it. At the height of their power, humanity controlled over 3,000 star systems. Their technology was so advanced that they could reshape planets, move stars, and travel between dimensions as easily as you travel between rooms." Dr. Choi's hands were shaking as she worked at her console. "Captain, I've been cross-referencing the ambassador's claims with archaeological data from our databases. There are ruins on 67 different worlds that match the dragon's breath's architectural style, but we always assumed they were built by unknown alien civilizations. The pieces were falling into place, and Kim didn't like the picture they were forming." "What happened to them? If humanity was so powerful, why don't we remember any of this?" Commander Nixara answered, and her voice was heavy with old pain. "They destroyed themselves, Captain, or came very close to it. The weapons they created became so powerful that they threatened the stability of space-time itself. Entire regions of the galaxy became uninhabitable. Some areas are still dangerous to approach, even after 4 centuries. The surviving humans made a choice," Veltaran continued. "Rather than face the consequences of what they had unleashed, they scattered across the galaxy. They took only basic technology and settled on primitive worlds, hoping their descendants would prove wiser than they had been." Kim felt the weight of this revelation settling on his shoulders. "And the Council helped them disappear." "The Council ensured they stayed disappeared," the ambassador corrected. "We have spent 4 centuries carefully managing humanity's development, making sure you never again gained the knowledge to build weapons like the dragon's breath. Every time your scientists got too close to dangerous discoveries, we intervened. Every time your governments tried to expand too quickly, we created obstacles." The anger that rose in Kim's chest was hot and immediate. "You've been sabotaging us, keeping us weak and isolated while you controlled the galaxy." "We kept you safe," Veltaran replied, "and we kept the galaxy safe from you. But now you have awakened something that should have stayed buried forever." Han was studying the tactical displays with growing concern. "Captain, they're moving into attack positions. Whatever they plan to do, they're preparing to do it by force." Kim looked around his bridge at his crew, people who had trusted him to lead them on what should have been a routine exploration mission. Now they were facing the revelation that everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the Galaxy was a lie, and they were about to become the center of a conflict that could reshape galactic politics forever. "Ambassador," Kim said carefully, "what exactly are you proposing?" "Surrender the Dragon's Breath to Council authority, and we will allow you and your crew to return to human space with your memories intact. Refuse, and we will be forced to take the vessel by whatever means necessary." The threat was clear, but Kim could hear something else in the ambassador's voice: uncertainty. Fear, even. The Council wasn't just worried about the Dragon's Breath. They were terrified of what would happen if humanity remembered who they used to be. Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the Dragon's Breath, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. Around him, his crew waited for orders that could determine the fate of humanity's future in the galaxy. The Council fleet stretched across space like a wall of metal and weapons, each ship armed with enough firepower to level a city. "Captain," Ambassador Velteran's voice crackled through the communications system, "you have 30 seconds to respond to our demand. Surrender the vessel, or we will take it by force." Kim looked at his crew, people who had followed him on what should have been a simple exploration mission, and now found themselves at the center of a galactic crisis. Lieutenant Colonel Han caught his eye and gave a small nod. She had already made her choice, and Kim could see the same determination in the faces around him. "Ambassador," Kim replied, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind, "I refuse your demand. This ship belongs to humanity, and we will not surrender our heritage to your authority." The silence that followed stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. When Velteran spoke again, his voice carried a tone that Kim had never heard from a Council official before, something that sounded almost like respect mixed with fear. "Very well, Captain Kim. Since you have chosen to resist Council authority, I invoke the ancient right of conquest under Galactic Code 77 Alpha. This matter will be settled through trial by combat in the Nexus arena." Commander Nixara's voice cut through the channel. "Captain, the right of conquest is an old law that allows disputes to be settled through combat when diplomatic solutions fail. You will face our fleet in single combat. If you win, the Council recognizes your claim. If we lose, we're dead," Kim finished. "I understand the terms." Within minutes, the space around them began to shimmer and twist. The stars disappeared, replaced by swirling colors that hurt to look at directly. The Dragon's Breath and the Council fleet found themselves in a pocket dimension that existed outside normal space-time, the Nexus arena, where the galaxy's most serious disputes had been settled for thousands of years. Major Shinwu Jin had never piloted anything like the Dragon's Breath before. The ship's controls seemed to respond to his thoughts as much as his hands, and he could feel the vessel's incredible power humming beneath his fingertips. Beside him, Captain Lee So-young was frantically trying to understand weapon systems that defied everything she knew about military technology. "Hanul," Kim called to the ship's AI, "what are our chances?" "Captain, this vessel was designed to face threats that could destroy civilizations. The Council fleet, while numerous, represents conventional technology. However, I must warn you, combat will require me to access systems that have been dormant for centuries. The full capabilities of the Dragon's Breath have never been tested in actual battle." Navigator Officer Park Jun-seo was monitoring the Council fleet's movements when he suddenly gasped. "Captain, they're moving into attack formation. 112 ships against us. The firepower differential is—" He paused, checking his calculations. "Sir, they can put out roughly 3,000 times more destructive force than any ship in the human fleet." The Council's opening attack was devastating. Energy beams that could melt through starship armor like butter, missile salvos that could flatten mountains, and exotic weapons that Kim didn't even have names for, all converged on their position simultaneously. The combined assault was enough to destroy a small moon, and it was all aimed at the Dragon's Breath. But something incredible happened. Instead of being destroyed, the ancient human ship seemed to drink in the attack. The energy beams were absorbed by hull plating that shifted and flowed like living metal. The missiles exploded harmlessly against shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The exotic weapons simply vanished, as if they had been fired into empty space. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Choi from her science station. "The energy readings I'm getting don't make sense. It's like the ship is converting their attacks into power for our own systems." Hanel's voice filled the bridge with calm authority. Combat protocols engaged, adapting to enemy weapon signatures, quantum learning algorithms active, preparing counterattack. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. The Dragon's Breath didn't just fight back. It did things that rewrote the rules of space combat. Major Shin watched in amazement as his ship tore open holes in space-time itself, disappearing from one location and instantly appearing somewhere else entirely. "We just teleported," Shin said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We actually bent space and jumped across the battlefield without moving through the space in between." The ship's weapons were even more incredible. Instead of conventional energy beams or missiles, the Dragon's Breath fired bursts of pure force that could manipulate gravity, alter the fundamental properties of matter, and even affect the flow of time around enemy vessels. Council ships found themselves moving in slow motion, while the ancient human vessel danced around them at impossible speeds. Captain Lee was trying to understand her weapon displays when she realized something that made her stomach drop. "Captain, I don't think these are weapons in the traditional sense. The ship is manipulating the basic forces that hold the universe together. We're not just shooting at them, we're changing the laws of physics in localized areas around their ships." Park watched his navigation displays as the Dragon's Breath performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. The ship moved through space like it was swimming through water, ignoring inertia and momentum, as if they were mere suggestions rather than fundamental laws. Within 15 minutes of combat, 56 Council ships had been disabled, not destroyed. Hanel seemed incapable of taking lives unnecessarily, but rendered completely helpless. Their weapons wouldn't fire, their engines wouldn't start, and their life support systems were functioning but locked into safe mode. The remaining Council vessels began retreating to what they hoped was a safe distance, but even that proved futile. The Dragon's Breath could apparently affect ships from ranges that conventional sensors couldn't even detect. "Hanul," Kim asked, watching the retreating fleet, "are we winning?" "Captain, this engagement ceased to be a contest approximately 12 minutes ago. The Council fleet is operating with technology that is approximately 400 years behind the capabilities of this vessel. They are not our enemies. They are simply outmatched." Ambassador Veltaran's voice came through their communications, but now it carried a tone of awe rather than authority. "Captain Kim, we surrender. The right of conquest is yours. We have never witnessed technology of this magnitude." Commander Nixara added, "Captain, my people's records spoke of human capabilities, but even our oldest stories didn't describe anything like what we just witnessed. Your ancestors built something that transcends our understanding of what's possible." Kim looked around his bridge at his crew, all of whom were staring at their displays in shock. They had just single-handedly defeated a fleet that could have conquered most civilizations, and they had done it without killing a single enemy soldier. "Hanul," Kim said quietly, "what exactly are we?" The AI's response was both humbling and terrifying. "Captain, you are the inheritors of the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. The question now is what you choose to do with that inheritance." The news traveled faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days of the battle in the Nexus arena, every major civilization in the galaxy had heard about humanity's impossible victory. Communication networks that normally carried routine trade reports and diplomatic messages were buzzing with excited chatter about the ancient human ship that had single-handedly defeated the Council's most powerful fleet. Captain Kim found himself at the center of a media storm that he never could have imagined. Reporters from dozens of species were requesting interviews, while government officials who had previously treated humanity as a minor player in galactic politics were suddenly very interested in opening diplomatic channels. The most dramatic change came from the archaeological community. Dr. Park Mi-young was fielding calls from research teams across the galaxy, all reporting the same thing: ruins that had been classified as unknown alien origin for centuries were suddenly being recognized as human constructions. The architectural patterns matched the dragon's breath perfectly. "Captain, you need to see this," Mi-young said, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy onto the bridge's main display. Red dots marked the locations of confirmed human ruins, and there were far more than anyone had expected. "We're finding evidence of human presence on over 200 worlds. These aren't just outposts or research stations. These are the remains of major cities, industrial complexes, and what look like massive shipyards." Lieutenant Jin Wu was coordinating with teams from the Human Colonial Authority who were scrambling to catalogue the discoveries. "Sir, the implications are staggering. If even half of these sites are genuine, humanity once controlled a significant portion of the galaxy. We're not talking about a small empire. We're talking about a civilization that spanned thousands of light years." The political ramifications were equally dramatic. The Galactic Council, which had maintained order for 4 centuries by carefully managing the balance of power between different species, suddenly found themselves facing a situation they had never prepared for. Humanity wasn't just another member species anymore. They were the inheritors of technology that made them potentially the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Captain Kim received a formal invitation to address the reformed Galactic Assembly just 2 weeks after the battle. As his shuttle approached the massive space station that served as the galaxy's political center, he could see that everything had changed. Ships from human colonies that had never been allowed to participate in galactic politics were now docked, alongside the vessels of major powers. The assembly hall itself was a marvel of engineering, a vast spherical chamber where representatives from hundreds of worlds could gather in person or via holographic projection. Kim had seen it in documentary footage before, but experiencing it firsthand was overwhelming. The diversity of life in the galaxy was on full display, from the towering silicon-based crystallines to the energy beings who existed as pure light. Ambassador Veltaran was waiting for him at the speaker's podium, but the proud diplomat who had demanded humanity's surrender was gone. In his place stood a humbled leader who understood that the balance of galactic power had shifted permanently. "Captain Kim Tai-ho," Veltaran announced to the assembled representatives, "I present to you the voice of humanity, inheritors of the most advanced civilization our galaxy has ever known." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence were now standing to applaud. Trade representatives were already preparing offers for technology exchanges, while military leaders wanted to discuss defense partnerships. Kim took the podium and looked out at hundreds of alien faces, all focused on him with intense curiosity. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly," he began. "3 weeks ago, I was the captain of a simple exploration vessel. Today, I stand before you as the representative of a species that has just rediscovered its own forgotten history." He paused, choosing his words carefully. The decisions made in this room would shape the future of galactic civilization for generations to come. We have learned that our ancestors once possessed technology beyond our current understanding. They built ships that could reshape reality, weapons that could move stars, and defenses that existed across multiple dimensions. But we have also learned why they chose to abandon this power. The hall was completely silent now. Every representative was hanging on his words. They chose to forget because they understood that power without wisdom leads to destruction. Today, humanity faces the same choice our ancestors faced. We can use our rediscovered abilities to dominate the galaxy, or we can use them to protect it. Chief Engineer Yang had been working around the clock with teams across human space, and his reports were both exciting and concerning. More human derelicts were awakening every day, responding to signals broadcast by the Dragon's Breath. Each ship contained AIs similar to Haniel, along with technology that could revolutionize medicine, energy production, space travel, and dozens of other fields. "Captain," Yang reported during one of their daily briefings, "we've confirmed 17 more active vessels, and long-range scans suggest there could be hundreds more scattered across the galaxy. Each one contains enough advanced technology to transform an entire civilization." Dr. Choi had established the Human Heritage Research Division with approval from both the Colonial Authority and the Galactic Assembly. Her team was working with Hanel and the other awakened AIs to carefully study humanity's lost knowledge, with the goal of reintroducing it safely. "We're not trying to recreate the past," she explained to Kim during one of their research sessions. "We're trying to learn from it. Every AI we've awakened has stories about the wars that nearly destroyed the galaxy. They remember the mistakes our ancestors made, and they're helping us avoid repeating them." The most significant change came in galactic defense policy. The old system of competing military forces and regional conflicts was clearly obsolete when one species possessed technology that could overwhelm any conventional fleet. After months of negotiation, the Galactic Assembly agreed to create a unified defense force with the Dragon's Breath as its flagship. Captain Kim found himself promoted to Admiral and placed in command of the new Galactic Defense Fleet. Ships. From dozens of worlds now served alongside human vessels, all working together to maintain peace and respond to threats that no single species could handle alone. Standing on the bridge of the Dragon's Breath, watching a mixed fleet of human and alien ships conducting joint training exercises, Kim reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been a minor player in galactic politics, struggling to maintain their small collection of colonies and trading posts. Now they were the guardians of galactic civilization, protectors of the peace their ancestors had once shattered. The technology that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 4 centuries ago was being used to defend it. "Hanul," Kim said to the ship's AI, "do you think we're making the right choices?" The artificial intelligence was quiet for a moment before responding. "Captain, your ancestors asked me the same question before they chose exile over empire. I believe they would be proud of the path you have chosen. You have taken the power to conquer and chosen instead to protect. The age of human isolation was indeed over, but it had been replaced by something better, an age of cooperation, understanding, and shared responsibility for the future of all galactic civilizations."